Hey, welcome back, Bike Skills Project. Today we're talking about braking, and it's a skill that is sort of hard to explain a lot of times because it's so situation dependent and how fast you're going. And so the biggest thing is just getting out and using your brakes. One, the front brake is your friend. You should use it to get slowed down really fast. So that's a common myth that people have, is that the front brake's really dangerous and it's going to flip us over. But if we put our body position, that same athletic position we're always talking about, centered in the bike, not too far back, we're not hanging our butt out behind the saddle, we're not hanging out over front of the bike. But if we're coming into a corner, we're sort of like up, athletic position, applying that brake, not slamming it on, but modulating, especially with the disc brakes, making sure that we're not just slamming it, but we're easing into that. There's a lot of power there, and that front brake can really get us slowed down. And as you understand that, that builds a whole perception of safety, because you now know you can slow down in an instant, so you're not so worried about what's around that corner, because you know you can get stopped pretty much no matter what. So a couple drills that I like using to practice braking and just get comfortable with this idea of the front brake and the rear brake and how much power is there is the bump and run, and then also we play around with some track standing, which is sort of like the bump and run. And then we also play around with trying to get a little bit of nose wheelie, sort of manual, maybe a bit onto the back, and just sort of feeling those brakes locking up. So those are sort of two quick drills that you can practice before we get out to the hill and we start learning getting down that hill under control using the front brake. So the other bit, so once we have our bump and run and we've gotten comfortable with this idea of hitting the log and then coming back, then we start doing it without the log. So now we're just sort of doing this, touch the log, come back, touch the log, and the log, in this case, the log is our brakes. So I'm using the front brake and I'm feeling the power that the front and the rear brake have, and this is just your track stand. As you get more and more comfortable with the track stand, those movements become smaller and you're way more balanced. But to start, you're sort of working this back and forth. So this is an awesome skill you're going to use on the trail when things get slowed down, you're not sure where to go, people in front of you stop. This prevents unclipping and falling over. But the track stand is a big part of just sort of feeling those brakes working, and I think it really affects how we use it then when we're actually riding on the trail. So our next bit, we take our track stand, but now we're on a very gradual downhill. And what we start doing is we just see how slow can we creep down it. And so I'm watching that I don't get flipped over, learning my front brake, putting my body position where I want it. And so for most people, we're just gonna crawl and feel that front brake versus the rear brake is, skidding, and just learning how that goes down a sort of gradual, safe, we're on grass. So that's sort of our first step to learning good braking. And then we can add speed and more technical features in a later episode.